Hey everyone, this is Sellers.
And this is Stormy.
And this is Unforgotten,
where each episode will highlight unsolved missing, murdered, and suspicious death cases in Alabama in order to raise awareness and hopefully obtain some answers for victims and their families.
Please remember that any individual referenced in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law, and any opinions or views expressed in the podcast are solely those of participants. Listener discretion is advised, as some of the content discussed in the podcast may contain violence or graphic descriptions and may not be suitable for all audiences.
And now for episode 37, Unforgotten Talk with Raul Montero.
Hey guys, and welcome back. I've missed you.
I missed you. I bet you they missed you too.
It is.
They're probably tired of hearing me talk and not having you around.
It's been weird. Maybe they enjoyed a break. Who knows? Man, it's been busy.
It has been busy.
It's been super busy.
Yeah, we've had a lot. There's been a lot going on in general in the true crime podcasting world as much as there is cases.
Yeah.
You know,
it's just, I mean, broadly in this general area. And then just for us with ACCA and the podcast and stuff, there's a lot of things that kind of hit at one time.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess it comes and goes like that. Sometimes it's in waves and we're always busy anyway. But it just seems like there was kind of a mass dump of things, you know, that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. April's a kind of a busy month nationally.
Yeah.
And even May to a degree. I mean, May will be for us because we're going to be coming up on our
We're turning 2.
Yeah, our 2-year anniversary as ACCA is coming right up.
I know. And sometimes I think like, man, I really wish that we were like further along than what we are. But I feel like we've made some really good steps in 2 years.
I think we have to. I really do. And we've made some really great friends and added some really wonderful families to our family. And I'm happy with where we are.
It's about time for a new shirt design.
It is. I think so too. And we got to get on that.
Yep, I was just thinking about that yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about April being busy. Part of the reason for that is there's a whole week set aside for National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And I didn't realize it, but this has been going on since 1981.
Oh, has it really been that long?
Yeah.
I did not know that. A lot of these things are like fairly recent, you know, in the last like 10 years or something.
Yep, it has been going on for a really long time. And it has a super important purpose because it not only honors and remembers the victims of crimes, but it urges the nation to confront and remove barriers that obstruct justice for all victims, which is exactly what we're working for. You know, that's what we are constantly trying to help families do. You know, we want to see everybody obtain justice and resolution, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's a big deal. And I think sometimes it's not maybe as well advertised or marketed or things, you know, it's getting a little bit easier, you know, with social media and things where it can come out and be shared across the masses. But I don't know that it's as talked about, you know, is what it could be. And hopefully we'll start seeing some changes and stuff with that. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do, really. And throughout the week, counties across Alabama host vigils. They do their own kind of small local thing.
It was getting me kind of confused when we were trying to figure out where you were going.
I know. And I had went through and tried to like search for events on Facebook to share so that people would know kind of in their area when they were happening. But I was having a hard time finding them. And I think it's because probably not everywhere posted them or made them events. Because I found out Friday that there was one for Jefferson County and one for Montgomery County earlier in the week. But I had not seen anything on those. But last Friday, I actually got to go to the big one, which they have at the end of the week that's hosted by Vocal, which is the Victims of Crime and Leniency and Attorney General Steve Marshall's office.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, you pull up and you're in front of the Capitol, and across the lawn are all of these crosses that Vocal's put up.
When you shared that with me, I was just,
and
it's crazy.
It just will give you chills. It was just, there were too many, but at the same time that it's not all of them.
Right.
And I just kind of looked at it for a while. And I wish now that I had taken a picture of that part. But I think Wanda actually has a picture on the Vocal page that I'm going to go get to put on our page. At 6, they had you could walk through and meet some of the community partners, which was really awesome. I got to meet some people from the Victims Compensation Program and Aaliyah and Vocal and all of these people. And it was really nice talking to them, kind of networking and things. I met April and Carrie Chafin, CJ's parents, and Shauna Hayden for Daniela. They came up and met me up there. So it was nice getting them to be able to talk to, other community partners too, to help kind of spread the words. We left some of CJ's flyers with them.
That was good. I was so glad that you guys were able to do that.
Yeah. And Brenda Shank actually came up later. And so she came up right as the program was starting for her son, David Beckshank, who they're still working on. He was murdered. And they're still working towards getting that kind of final resolution in that. And man, she is a force to be reckoned with. She is one strong mama. There were times where you might not be able to hear very well. So I just scrapped the live idea. But I think that I signed us up for the Vocal email newsletter. So they may actually send out a video. I think they were recording it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
But, it wasn't just the crosses. There were a ton of names in the book that they passed out that I'd never heard of. So there was a link, and I wish I'd seen it sooner, but there was a link in the event that we had shared that you could send in a picture and a short blurb about who you were sending in. And there were so many names in there that I'd never heard of. We get a ton of names and we have a ton of names. And but then here are all these other ones.
We're going to have to start updating our list.
I know. And there was a family there that we actually talked to at the beginning. And they got an award at the vigil. Their daughter, Desta Denise Dodson Bird, was murdered in 1999. Her case was not prosecuted until 2014.
Oh.
It was just, it's heartbreaking because that's a really long time.
Yeah.
But it also helps build that hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And it reminds me that I really like that quote that we've used before from Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And it just, I feel like it really encompasses all that we deal with when we talk to the families that have been waiting so long like that. But it was an awesome experience, aside from why we were there. I being able to be there and support our families and other families and hear these stories and see the ways that Vocal is working within the community. And for those who aren't familiar with Vocal, they are the group that the advocates for basically pending and active cases.
Right.
And even beyond, when it comes to parole hearings and things like that, like they are the advocates that are assigned to you to help navigate through that process.
Right.
And they do really good things. And so they're actually this year hosting a Voices for Victims 5K on June 22nd in Montgomery. And we're sponsoring it, or one of the sponsors.
Right. Yep.
I am going to do my absolute best to run this entire 5K. I don't know how it's going to work.
I'm really proud of you for committing to doing that.
I may get some way to attach a camera to me. So, and I'll live video you. I'll FaceTime you, and that way, if I fall over,
Yeah.
you know to call somebody to come get me. Come get me.
That'd be awesome.
Because
yeah, we
I'm
can
not,
do a little.
I'm not a runner. I don't run anywhere.
Maybe I'll try to do a walk while you're running.
If I don't start, I'm gonna be crawling. It'll be fun, and I think everybody should sign up. You don't have to run the entire thing. I probably really won't run the entire thing. But it's
just seeing
it's for
you there,
a good,
though.
Yeah, it's for a good cause, and it come out and support the victims and their families, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll have a link there, and for anybody who can't actually make it, you can still support Vocal and
a couple of other fun things. We made it into the finals for the Lanyap's annual Nappy Awards for Best Local Website and Blog. Woo!
Yes, that was so exciting to see. Yay!
And of course, okay, we had no idea we made it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just happened on Sunday. I was like, oh, I want to go look and see, if I know anybody on there. And I'm scrolling through and I'm like, holy that's us. And I mean, mind blown that we were in there. I'm really excited about it. I think that's kind of a big deal. I'll take the win just for making it into the finals.
Amen. And most of the credit, I mean, just like I've hardly even dabbled in there. So most of the credit really is for Sellers because she's the one that put the site together.
Which it's been revamped. And I actually really like it. I think it looks cleaner.
Yeah. Yeah, you did a good job.
It looks good. And so it's a little bit lighter. I like it. I liked our dark colors, but I like the light one too.
I know. You made a good point when we were talking about it because I am kind of partial to the darker colors as well. But, we really are, it's all about shining light, like you said, when we were talking. And this actually, it does lighten up the site quite a bit and really is what we're about. So
starting May 1st through May 26th, you can vote each day for Alabama Cold Case Advocacy under the media category for Best Local Website and Blog on votenappies.com.
And so, you guys are going to hear this. Some of you will hear this on May 1st. So, you Patreon subscribers, make sure you start tomorrow or start today, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess it gets confusing again because today is tomorrow, but tomorrow is, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what.
And then we also found out that we earned the number 2 spot on FeedSpot's top 10 Best Alabama True Crime Podcast. That's all thanks to you guys.
I know. That's
because that's listener based.
Yep. We couldn't have done it without you guys.
Could not have made it there without you guys.
And, and I'm going to just say it because I know you didn't want to say it, but I don't want it to feel like we're bragging because really what this is all reflected on how much we can put all of these cases out into the world, out into the universe and have people hearing the stories and hearing, the families and that sort of thing. So all of the good things for us is really the good things for you. This is all for you guys.
So this week, we're actually taking a step out of Alabama. It's been a while since we've done one of the Unforgotten talks.
Yeah. But they're good. They're really good to do sometimes because it gives us a little different perspective on things and has good conversation with people of like mind.
Oh, yeah. And I just adore Raul.
I know.
He is inspirational and he is, a go-getter.
Yeah. And he's truly the heart of everything he does. I mean, he just, there's no middle ground. There's no.
It is all or nothing.
I'm going to step in. Yep.
And when he jumps in, he's in. Full on.
Yep. And his families know that too. I mean, the people that he talks to, the not just the families, but law enforcement and all his supporters. You just can't not know that if you know Raul.
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with who we're talking about, you might know him better as Catch Lisk. You can find him on Twitter and Facebook. He has created this insane map, this insane Google map.
So crazy good. Oh, my heavens.
Oh, my gosh. He started out going through, because he has a vested interest in the area where the Long Island serial killer was active, because he lives there and wanted a way to help. And so he started going through and mapping out unidentifieds to see if anything matched up kind of with what they knew about motives and things, preferences for Lisk. And so then it started expanding, and now he has covered the entire U.S., mapping out unidentified bodies. And I think it's even expanded beyond that.
It has a bit,
for sure, unidentified in all but 3 states.
I know, and you can drill it down to like timeline and all different kinds of categories. And it's amazing.
Because he's very specific in how he has it categorized, and it's chronological, and I mean he's very, very specific.
He is. And he's done it all himself. And there's been people that have offered to help, and well, we'll hear more about that. But it's just amazing.
It is. He's a co-host on a podcast, Catch Justice, with Jessica for Justice. And then on top of having the podcast, he's also advocating for Dawn Holt with her family. And he's going to tell us about that in the interview. He's just incredibly, like I said, inspiring and hardworking, and his compassion for what he's doing and drive and motivation, and it resonates. It resonates with what we're trying to do, and he's great. I don't really know how else to put it. He's just great.
Yeah. He is. Well, and he's been there. He's been so supportive of us.
Yes.
And
he
so,
has.
If for no other reason, and there's plenty of other reasons, but if for no other reason, we want to make sure that he's feeling supported by us as well. But that's, there's so many other reasons to just love Raul.
Exactly. So we hope you guys enjoyed the interview as much as we did. And be sure to check in. Let us know what you thought. If you've got any questions, we'll get them to him. Follow him on his social media pages. We'll link the link tree at the end. In the episode description. Check out that map. If you see anything that looks familiar to you in your area, let us know. Let him know. And as always, if you have any information about any case, but especially Dawn's case, get it in.
Right.
There are plenty of avenues out there to get information in an anonymous way if you're concerned about it being linked back to you. And if you're not sure how to get it in, you can contact us on our website. You don't even have to put your email address in there. It is just fill out the form and hit the button. But tell us what case it is. Obviously.
Make sure you tell us what case. Yeah. And be as specific as you can with what details you do have, so that we, it is kind of hard if we don't know exactly what you're talking about. So I know that some people think we can read minds, and it's all well intended, but
I tried.
Takes a little digging.
I did not get those superpowers during the eclipse like I thought I was going to.
I so wish we would have.
I tried really hard to have some Jedi mind tricks and move some things after it. And I was still not there. Dang it.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, thank you guys for listening. And like you said, all the links will be in our episode details, and enjoy.
So, all right.
So I should begin about me, or
tell us a little bit about you.
So
it's always the worst part.
Who is this great guy that's sitting before us and agreed to come on our show?
Hi, everyone. I am Raul Montero. I am otherwise known as Catch Lisk,
Woohoo!
um, which is an acronym for the Long Island serial killer. I became, I if you've seen me out there before, heard me, I don't consider myself into true
Mhm.
crime. Um, which I think I just say that for my own self because I don't even think I believe it myself. I remember, reading or listening to things about all kinds of missing people, for example,
Mhm.
or murdered people, and just having a curiosity and an empathy towards it, like a feeling. And I think when it came to the Long Island serial killer, it's because I had lived on Long Island for such a long
Mhm.
part of my life. I was familiar with, all locations there. I've been to Gilgo
Mhm.
Beach as a kid, not much of a surfer, but, it's just beautiful scenery. And I love Long Island. I'll always love Long Island. And I also wound up caring about the victims that I was seeing and portrayed in newspapers or whatever. And then as the case developed, you realize, wait a second. I remember seeing that Peaches tattoo in the
Mhm.
newspaper, in the New York Post or something like that, and in '97. Because I have a weird memory. Like I may not remember something for a decade, and then when it comes right back to me, there's such clarity to it. Like I know the place, I know the location, I know where I was, I remember details about it. So it all started to sort of coalesce around it. And then, of course, with the disappearance and the death of Shannon Gilbert, and just realizing that there's how many truths are there and what's the
Mhm.
real one. And um, seeing this sort of campaign of disparaging comments about Shannon Gilbert, about her lifestyle, about the people, or on Long Island in Oak Beach,
Yeah.
and that whole scenario. And I just started collecting what were facts. And I just wrote them down at first. And I'm a little bit tech savvy. So I started creating like a little folder on my phone because I did everything on my cell phone. And then just started collecting facts and organizing it. And then realizing that there were Facebook groups to this, and I was like, wow, there's people like me out there. And I joined a whole bunch. And the first few that I joined, I realized that some of those admins were, setting up a narrative that wasn't in alignment with the truths as I was discovering them and getting verification on them. And then I did hit a couple of groups that had very similar um, mindsets about etiquette and empathy and victim centric. And I became more and more enamored to them. And I became more comfortable sharing, or combating any false
Mhm.
narrative that was put out there and saying that's not true. Here's a
Right.
link to the truth. Here's several verifiable sources to that truth. So take back that statement. And I think when you do that, you start to gain
Mhm.
peer respect, and then you start to gain the family's respect.
Mhm.
And I remember the first time, Shannon Gilbert's sister commented on a post I
Mhm.
wrote, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God. But I was so honored and I was so
Mhm.
shook, and
Yeah.
I felt so close. And, you know, I think whenever I do that, like you'll hear me say it on my own show, it's like I'm not the smartest one in the room, or anything like that. But I have the facts, I have the
Mhm.
resources, I have the
Mhm.
links. And from there, seeing these, 10, 11 victims, spread out along Ocean Parkway on Long Island, we needed to visualize it. So I tried several different, iterations of maps and settled on the Google map. And I had
Mhm.
several iterations of that map. And then, bam, I had all the Long Island victims there. I increased it to all of Long Island unidentified, and then a whole lot of missing. And then I needed more because I had expanded to Queens and Brooklyn and New York City, and then my life absolutely end it, because all I do is dedicate every opportunity to adding another person, another state of unidentified on the map. And I have 3 left to do: Arizona,
Wow.
Texas, and California. And then I'm moving on to the missing persons. But for me, it became, that map became something that I was just doing, I think, to find a path for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I wanted to do anything with it. It was a curiosity. It was something that um, made me feel like I was contributing, even though the map was just for me. I created it for a fellow researcher, but when it became 200 people on the map, she's like, it's overwhelming. I can't. It's hard to differentiate it. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, then all you have to do is just use the timeline, because it's all in chronological order, and then you
Yeah.
can find an unidentified. You can go look for a missing person before that, and it's easy to just bypass and
Yeah.
see. And then that's when it hit me. It's like, oh man, like it's that simple to
Mm-hmm.
use, for me at least.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became more and more self-aware of a missing person, and then I'd go right to the map and go, I think I found this person.
Yeah.
And the first one that I feel like I was a part of discovering, I realized it on a Sunday morning on the train going into the city, and I literally yelled out loud, oh shit, and people looked at me, and I'm like, oh my God. But it was Sunday morning, and I called the medical examiner in New York City to say, hey, I think this is this. Um, and then I just backed off, because it
Yeah.
terrified me at the same time.
Yeah.
And it weighed on me, because I still see his face. I see his
Mm-hmm.
face as a living young man, and I see his face as, what they show on name
Was it a
is.
match?
Oh,
It was a perfect match, right down to
Oh.
the moles on the face and everything. It was
yeah. Oh, wow.
undeniable, and it was very heavy. And I don't think I did anything on the map for 3 days. I think I took off of work for 2 of those 3 days, and I just
Mm-hmm.
sat alone on my sofa, going, "This is too heavy. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to do any of this anymore." And then I woke up one morning, and I'm like, "No, I got to keep going." And then it just became, I would see a missing person on a Facebook group, and I'm going to be a little vague here, but I kind of set it out there a little bit, but I'm not going to share who I believe this person to be. But in any event, I saw a missing person,
Mm-hmm.
and she had nothing. There was nothing. There was no case
Mm.
file on her. There was no missing persons report on her. It was 42 years in the making. Nothing. Nobody would help her. And I got the details from the Facebook group, and I didn't even have to look at the map. Like, I knew exactly who this person
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
really might be. And for me, it's not an official match, because that case is
Mm.
now under investigation.
Mm-hmm.
But my first real sort of advocacy work was getting and partnering with several different New York City agencies, the family, and we got Stacy Reddish a
Mm-hmm.
missing persons report after 42 years.
Mm-hmm.
With that, her NamUs page was activated. Now
Oh,
her
that's great.
NCMEC is going to do an age
Nice.
progression,
Yeah.
and that's just because I jumped in, and that's, I, like I said before, I'm nothing. I'm not. I'm nobody, but I don't have to be anything big to do that.
No, and sometimes it just takes somebody who wants to help,
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about kind of how you got started into it. It was like kind of just something for you, and it gave you kind of a sense of purpose.
Yes.
And that's kind of how
Yeah.
we got started. I was really struggling in general in my personal life, and kind of digging out of some things, and trying to find kind of my place, like where I was at. And I had been in the legal field prior to starting this, and I'm still kind of technically in the legal field, but this has always been an interest. I have a psychology degree and forensics and things like that. I've like always been interested in that. So there was a young woman that went missing on my birthday in 2018. And that's kind of where it got started, because then they found her in almost a year later in 2019. And she was like 17 miles away from where she was last seen. And there was never any in her car, submerged in a creek. And there was a very weird circumstances. It was never really, there were no answers. And she had a young daughter. She was a single mom, young daughter. And it bothered me because I'd been a single mom at one point, and she was trying really hard to get her life together. And it just seemed like her family, she didn't have any blood family here. And so it was actually technically her on again, off again boyfriend. It was her daughter's father. That family stepped in. That was her family. They had basically, when she moved down here, that's who she had. And they had taken her in basically as their own. And that's who was advocating for her here. And they just weren't getting anywhere. But all I could think about was her daughter.
Yeah.
And how she was missing all of these things with her mom. She was not going to have these things with her mom. And it was just like, we started researching, and I started doing the visualization for Uncovered. And then in that, it just kind of led to like, oh, here's another Alabama case.
Yeah.
Here's another Alabama case. It was like Brittany Wood and Brittany Robinson and Rakeem Samuel and Mon Holly and all of these cases, Bradley Huey, that are unsolved, and the state missing person database doesn't match the NamUs database, and there is no unsolved homicide database. And so it was like, holy crap. And so what's the best way to get this information out to the public, or get the most eyes on it, really, to start kind of building that interest again? And it's social media, it's the internet.
That's where it is. Yeah.
Getting that. Mm-hmm. And and it's like just that you might be doing something that seems so insignificant on the back end, but it means so much to the families that have been waiting for these answers, or just because they haven't had anybody ask them about that. Like we talk to families all the time who will say, like, nobody's even asked them about their child, or their family member, whoever it is, in years. They haven't even had anybody say their name, or, it's like nobody cares. They feel alone. They've been dealing with this for so long. And so it seems, when you think about it, you're like, gosh, we talk about it all the time that, gosh, we wish there was more we could do than just like a post on Facebook, and then it just kind of blossomed into, well, okay, let's do the podcast, and we can expand on there because you can only fit so much on a graphic. And then at the end, every time we try to call to get interviews with, get an update from the agency, we always try to get the agencies to give us a status, like give us an on the record statement to put with the podcast, because it lends more credibility to it. It encourages people to know that it's still active. A lot of them aren't always willing, but
what about 8 or 9 times out of 10, it's like either they don't call us back, or we don't really have anything to tell you.
If I'm the one that talks to them because I'm here, I always ask, well, if I came up there, would you let me look at the file?
Are you kidding me? Come on, who are you?
Probably not. We can't do that. Yeah. We can't do that.
It has. And I think, that is actually to your benefit, because once you get your foot in the door, once you have 1 or 2 down the road, that'll come into play to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
exactly. That's the lesson I've learned in the last 2 years.
And that's, it's just asking. And for the families, it's somebody there that's not them. It's somebody who doesn't have, there's no relationship there. There's something meaningful, I think, when you have somebody come in who literally has no reason other than they just genuinely are compassionate people.
Yep.
And care to say, you don't have to do this by yourself. And so I think it's a big deal. And that map you have put together is
phenomenal.
Yes, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot.
And that is, it blows my mind. Yes.
Yeah.
That it is awesome.
Again, what separates my map, because there's another map out there that is just absolutely beyond. Like, it is so next level, but they have a team of 6 to 8 people working on it all the time, but they also don't update it. So there are cases that are on my map that they haven't added that should be on the map. And then there's cases that are resolved. Like, as I learn something is resolved, I'll go in and put it on there. But I leave it on there for a while. I don't think I've maybe removed 2 resolved cases, but the reason I don't is because someone else may think of that person and they don't know that that case has been, or that person's at least been identified. So I tend to leave it all there.
So it's not at this point now that it's grown. It's not just that these are potential victims of Lisk. These are just unidentified. These are all not just unidentified. That sounded terrible. I don't mean that. This is the unidentified for every state. It doesn't mean that they're connected necessarily.
No. So I was adding all of New York just to have it, which turned into New Jersey and Connecticut. It's sort of the tri-state area. So I wound up getting those 3. And then because I was looking at like the New Bedford highway serial killers, so I was putting those victims. And then it became, let's get Massachusetts unidentified in. And then it wasn't until about a year ago, I did a podcast interview for the Girlfriends. It's the story about Gail Katz. Her husband had murdered her, threw her out of the plane in the Atlantic Ocean. The Girlfriends podcast is just absolutely incredible. Like, it's something to invest the time in. It is so heartwarming and endearing. And then I think, like, they're very honest. They warn you as a disclaimer, you're going to hear some curse words and you're going to cry. So cotton for your ears and tissues for your eyes.
Now,
well, I didn't listen to
you know
that.
better than that.
The very last episode, I mean, I know.
Did you fast forward through the disclaimer?
I cried all the time through that. I laughed when it was funny. I resonated with it because they just reminded me of people I grew up around. But what they did at the very end of the first season, the last show of the first season, they did something I wasn't prepared for. And I was on the subway. Now, people on my train, they've seen me get emotional because but they didn't see me at this level. What the Girlfriends did was, I'm going to get it now. They said the names of all the missing women in that time period. And it was so many of the girls that I put on the map that I felt like I was the only one that said this person's name in a decade. And here I am hearing these names for the first time. Someone saying those names to me, and I was beyond bawling. I was sobbing on the train. Some woman came up to me, put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes." Like, I was like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm in public and it's my stop. So thank God I can get off the train and hide my face." But
sorry, I was in my own world.
Yeah. And I thought that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life. And I was so honored to be to help them with some of their research. And I'm going to be on one of the episodes in season 2 that I think launches in a few weeks. But just powerful testimonials from people that care, people with empathy. But that's where I use the map to see if we can find out where Gail is. Are any of these unidentified or unsure genders? or
Yeah.
any of them possible for Gale. So then I at one point, it was all yellow along the east coast of the U.S. because I was adding all the unsured, undetermined sexes of these victims that, wash ashore or found on a beach or in the forest. And then I went, now I have to go full blast. So then I just started hitting all of the eastern seaboard states and getting them in. Florida, I did Florida in about 8 days, which was absolutely exhausting.
I was just
like
going to
because
say
they have a lot of
one.
stuff right there with the water. There are
Yeah, it was huge. But then from Florida, I made sure I went back and I made sure Alabama was on there, and then Arkansas, and then Georgia, and then Louisiana. And the only ones that are left are Arizona, Texas, and California, and they have, between those 3 states, it's another 7,400 to put on the map.
Oh my gosh!
Now I wanted to get them all on there by the end of May.
I was just going to ask how long.
2 years officially old at the end of May. Yeah, May 24th. But when I did the math to see, all right, how many would I have to put on a day to get that on the map before the 24th, and it's like 250, and I don't think I have enough vacation time. So I'm going to do my best to get there, but I don't think so. I'll probably do Arizona. I'm starting Arizona.
You could share the map.
Today.
You could get a team together to share it. And
tag
team it.
I've had people ask me, and I'm like, I don't know you. No way.
That is how we are too.
Giving up control of this map because I don't know. There's people with ulterior motives, and I don't want to be looking down on anybody because I know there are people just like me, people that care and people that want to help. But I'm more terrified of sharing that map and having something going wrong.
Oh, you don't have to tell us about it. We have people send us messages all the time about, we'll help you research or
it's hard to let go.
Whatever. And there's a difference, and it is hard. It is very hard too, because, this is our baby. We've been doing this now. It'll be 2 years in May. And, we have carefully crafted this to build the relationships that we have and to do this the right way and to make sure that, we're not hindering any kind of investigation, that we are helping in every way that we can, but not getting in the way.
Right.
And we will get messages sometimes that you can very much tell they may not come out and explicitly say it to begin with, but you can tell based on the wording, there is a specific case that they're trying to ask about, and they're trying to pick you to see what you know. And sometimes sometimes you have information that other people don't have, like the public.
You just see it differently too.
Yeah.
You look at that map, one of those layers still, and it's still there, are BTK possibles. There's a reason for that. And there's a database that's open sourced, but there's a reason for that. And, why am I looking or putting people on a BTK possible layer of people that might have been stabbed or shot? Well, there's a reason for that. Yeah. And it's not necessarily for public consumption.
I might know the reason for that.
There's a reason for that. And, I think that.
I could guess at the reason for that, but I will leave it there.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to figure out. But I did that because I knew that there was the BTK cold case task force, and I said, let me put everything aside and canvas this, because if we're looking at MOs that are much more broader, then we can possibly identify somebody else as a possible victim. And that was received well, and it's there for much longer. I'm going to leave it there for a little longer. Eventually I'll incorporate them back into the map because they do span a couple of different decades. But that's the value of something like that map. And because I keep it chronological, it is relatively easy to start off with a missing person, and then move up and see if you can just match things. For me, it's more visual and easier to do it that way, then they have 2 or 3 name as tabs open and just read data when I have all that data from Namus, from Charlie Project, from Doe Network in the icons on the map. So it's one-stop shopping, if you will, for like case histories. And I keep it updated. So when something happens, I go back in and I put it in. If some of the does are missing persons that I follow on my Namus, which is every single person, I'll go in and put a modification. You know, this was modified. We don't know what it is, or this person was added as an exclusion, and you know that it's one-stop shopping.
Oh, we did get to do an update on one not long ago when Olivia announced their identification down in Mobile on Frida, I think. What's her name? Yeah, she was found in a creek. But she was on the map, and we got to update it when they finished her identification. And Olivia talked about it on the episode, on the interview that we did with her.
Yeah, that was very moving for me too. I mean, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I think for me to realize that map's full potential was stunning.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty amazing.
It took me by surprise. I'm like, oh my God, like this can actually happen.
Do you pick up on patterns and things when you're looking at it? Yeah. That's what we've talked about. That I have, like, our website's very much a work in progress because I just haven't had a lot of time to go and finish it. But one of the things that I did put in there was I did go and create a map, like a little Google map to put on there so that people, instead of going by the counties, because sometimes they don't necessarily know what county they're looking for, I have a map where they can click on it. And it's similar to what you have on there, where it's just got the people. But I did that too because I started noticing patterns in women, specifically like clothing that they were wearing. And I was like, I want to know if there's hot spots in certain periods of time. And because also, I mean, and you see it too because there's bigger counties and things like that. But, you know, travel routes. Are you noticing that there's more here than, you know, wherever? But there's some clothing items that keep standing out, popping up and stuff that I'm like, wait a second, we had another case that we talked about this.
That's the interesting thing. I think one of the things when it came to list victims that I noticed, other people noticed it, but I became absolutely obsessed about it. And it was the eyes, the color of the eyes. And most of them were hazel. Some had bluish green, some had green. But it predominantly was a hazel eye color. And that's when I went back and I just started changing the color of some of the missing or the unidentified to be that greenish color. That's why they're green on the map. And then I became so committed to hazel that even if it's a guy in 1914 with hazel eyes, I'm putting that hazel color on it. It doesn't necessarily denote Long Island serial killer, but because I became so committed to that nuance that I couldn't let it go.
I didn't know that they were color coordinated.
Yeah, just with those eyes. The dark red and dark blue mean adult male and adult female. If they're eyes, they're missing. If they're hearts, they're deceased or unidentified. Light color pink, light color sky blue, eyes and hearts are minors. Yellow is for undetermined gender. Rainbow, LGBTQA plus. I always mess that up. I'm sorry. But it's alternative like that. And what else is there?
I'm looking at the map behind you.
Oh yeah, I should just look on the map.
I was looking at it while you were saying it. I was like, oh
wow.
This was a snapshot from a couple of months ago. So like all of this is filled in now.
That's insane.
Yeah. But there's like all the hazels, you know?
Yeah.
And then whatever's in black is a murderer, or a serial killer.
Oh. Wow.
Either where they are in prison or where they lived, some of their homes. Anything
kind of
Rex Heuermann related. I don't know if you see it on here, but it's brown. Most of them are building permits that I used brown for that. And a hammer icon because he, in that infamous YouTube video, he bragged about his grandfather's carpenter's hammer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky to be repairing bridges because before the arrest of Rex Heuermann, I was out and about just beating up Suffolk County on Twitter. Like I was just, they would post how they stopped traffic on Sunrise Highway to allow a duck and ducklings to cross, or how they changed a tire. And I'm like, where were they when I got a flat tire and they gave me a ticket? Like, who gives a shit? And I would just attack them. And, we allowed, ducklings to cross the road. I was like, well, how about solving some goddamn serial murders? Well, and it's funny because I would attack, he's now former police commissioner Rodney Harrison, when he took over the case, made all these, grandstanding promises that, the Gilgo victims are important to him. This case is going to be solved. And even though he released the 911 call of Shannon and a couple of the videos of Megan Waterman, like nothing was happening. And I just was harassing him on his Instagram account. Like I would tag him, and then all of that functionality went away. And I'm like, I even made a couple of posts on how he must be afraid of me because I'm not letting him go. And then the arrest came, and I realized, wow, these people were working their tails off. And, I had to really eat some crow.
Oh, then you feel bad because you're
I didn't feel bad.
No,
I didn't feel bad. But the one benefit was I built a relationship with Commissioner Harrison, and I spoke with him sitting here on this chair, and we had a great conversation.
Yeah.
I started to apologize, and he's like, no, people like you need to keep people like us the feet to the fire.
It's accountability.
It's accountability. And we
and
have
I get
to do that.
I get that they can't, there's limits to transparency. Everybody wants to talk about transparency, and transparency is great. It's more like opaqueness, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there are certain things that can't be released because you can't, there are things that only certain people would know, like the people that did it. But so you can't release certain things. But there need to be updates.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't go 28 years and not tell a family anything. You can't not update them. I'm currently in a battle right now with people about updating families. Like, just call them. Just call them and let them know. That's what I said.
And that's part of the strategy for Dawn Holt's family, because I'm not family. So even though the family can say that I'm an advocate with their blessings, I may not get that information directly from law enforcement. It may go to Dawn's family, which is fine. They'll share it with me immediately. But some of the things I said is, when engaging with them, you want a commitment from them, and you're not going to do it in a demanding way or a threatening way, but you want a commitment with them that you're going to speak to them. They're going to call you every 2 weeks. And even if there's nothing to share, they're going to tell you that. Like, that's the least, because she gave information to them 13 years ago. And she's still waiting for a call back. And that is absolutely unacceptable. And that's the part that gets me enraged. And, I'm ready to go to social media and do that. But I'm going to be a little bit careful this time because it's new leadership and new people on the case.
I get told all the time, we're busy. I know, but I also know that people make time for the things they want to do. Yeah. I also know it sometimes only takes 5 minutes for you to sit down and dial that phone number and say, hey, we hadn't forgot you. And that can mean more, than anything, because it just lets them know it didn't get pushed to the back burner. Well, I mean, it kind of did get pushed to the back burner because there are other things going on, but it's not just being put off.
Right.
Like, we're still thinking about it. It's going to be done. We hadn't forgotten about it. We just had some other things come in that we got to deal with first.
Yeah. And that's just a matter of professional respect. In your position, you have that awareness and you can accept it when you see it and it's genuine. From their end, they're not going to tell you everything,
No.
But you have that awareness, and that should just be some sort of mutual respect, professional respect given, and that's not always instantaneous. So there's a lot of work to build that.
Yep. And there's this you protect and serve the public.
Yeah.
There's that serve the public part. You're a public servant, and I hate that word in general, but it's still, there's this duty and obligation.
Yep.
And for certain officials in law enforcement agencies, you're elected. Yep. You are elected by the people. So you definitely have obligations and responsibilities to the people who have elected you to hold your position. So, yeah, you might have other things coming in, but to me, the people that you are representing, that you are supposed to be protecting and serving, all of that, they're important. And I get that when you have the cold cases, they probably represent a minority of the cases, the active cases that are coming in, but they are important because one, you have somebody who was murdered, and that means the person that's responsible is still walking around out there. And so if that's not enough to get you going, come on.
Yeah.
I don't care that this is a minority. You're letting a murderer walk around out there free, and they have every opportunity to just keep doing it again.
Yeah.
And the worst part about that is when you actually have information that could help actually, truthfully lead to that person, and they're ignoring it. That just, it's one thing if it's a 50-year-old case and the murder is probably dead, and I get that it's still important, but I get that might not be as high on the priority list. But
I mean, it happens all freaking time.
Oh, it does happen all the time, and I was eager to have a relationship with Rodney Harrison, the Suffolk County Police Commissioner. And own any angst I gave him, but that's part of his job to take, and I didn't really feel that bad.
Yeah.
What I won't, and who I won't apologize ever to, and I will, blast them every chance I get, is the current person I don't know, he's not the current now, but the former person in charge of the missing person squad. This man was absolutely a tool. He was just arrogant,
garbage,
and disrespectful.
Yeah.
And I get what you're interested in this, or you're writing a book, or you make him no, I get it. And I know you're not going to believe me, but I'm trying to help find what happened to 12-year-old girls here that just vanished, over the course of 3 years. What's going on? There aren't even images of them that, to share. And he's like, well, go talk to the families.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's just, there's nothing to go on, man. There's nothing to go on.
And how do you generate tips and information? When you don't have the information that are out there, you look through some of these NamUs entries or whatever, and there's nothing. You might have a name, you might have a date of last contact, a general area where they went missing, but then that's about it. They might have some height, they might have a very broad weight range. Maybe a hair color and eye color, but you don't know anything about what they were wearing.
Right.
There's nothing in there where which direction were they headed? What did they have planned?
And heaven forbid that the description is inaccurate. Oh gosh, which case was that we just had? We were the description was varied wildly, from 180 to 130 pounds. And
oh my gosh, it was
I can't remember who it was. The eye color was wrong. The hair color was wrong.
The height.
Everything. After we talked to the family, we were like, this doesn't even sound like your daughter or whateter.
It was Tash
amazing.
Wilson, right?
It was Tash. Yeah.
It was Tash.
Yeah, it was Tash.
Those are the entries
5'1" to 5'8" or something, and then 110 to 160, and we're like, that could be anybody.
Yeah, I've seen it 110 to 180, 110 to 180. What is that?
Yeah,
yeah. And those that entire range looks entirely different on somebody that's 5'1" versus 5'8".
Yeah,
And
I think also when I'm entering the map, people will go, oh my God, what's going on in, not Times Square, at City Hall in New York City, like on your map, there's like 40, 50 people there. I'm like, because there isn't an exact known
There's no
last
GPS
location.
coordinate.
Yeah. So they just
Yeah.
cluster them anywhere. And GPS coordinates, that's another thing. I sometimes wonder in in Nevada, like they tried doing coordinates and,
Didn't
they're
know.
putting X's and dashes and capital letters. And I'm like, oh my God, do you not know how to write coordinates? And I'm like, who am I, Mr. Spock, that I'm sitting there? I can rattle off coordinates, and I'm like, all right, but
well, I'm like, I just learned my directions. Like I just learned what northeast and northwest was really through doing the
Tell
podcast.
me where
like if I'm driving, don't ask me which direction we're going. I'll look at my rear view.
Tell me where the purple house is with the picket fence.
Exactly. How many curves do I have to go around?
Yeah.
But through this, like I've learned now, like I know where the counties are. I'm like, oh, that one's in the northeast corner. It's kind of like twist.
Yeah.
Gotta go a little bit south, not farthest. So like I finally learned those. But for the longest time, I used to have to do the never eat sour watermelons because I'm like, wait, which direction is that going to be in?
Yeah, I mean, I get.
Never eat sour watermelons.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that.
What?
I'm probably gonna have that on my mind tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
I've never heard that before. And I am geographically challenged, so I just
I apparently told that to my niece, and she's a senior this year, and it just stuck with her because she told me, this was a couple of years ago, she said, you know how I know my directions? And I'm like, how? And she said, you told me one time, never eat sour watermelons. And I'm like, that's stuck with you? Don't even really remember telling you that, but it definitely sounds like something I've told you.
Eat sour watermelons. Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing what we learn. I never thought I was always good at geography, but yeah, I could tell you where Egypt is on a map at 12 years old. Big deal. But now it's like, all right, yeah, Harris County. Oh, look, right down there. Or Montgomery. Which state Montgomery? There's several Montgomery counties.
Yes, there is.
You learn things like that. But it's always I'm always honored when like I get a call and, from a family member saying, I'm going to visit. Can you give me the exact coordinate? And they're able to go right to that spot and be with their loved one. And that's also very sobering and powerful, so like, the map has taken a lot out of me, but it's given me so much more in return. And I'm grateful for it. There are times, where I wake up and go, where are you taking me today? Because I just don't feel like continuing on with the state. I need a break from it.
Yeah.
And just literally within a second, I'm off and running on some tangent on the map because it hears me. I think the other interesting and slightly weird thing that happens, and I don't know, I'm sure scientifically it can be rebutted, but oftentimes, because once I have the location on the map, then I need to make sure I put it in the right chronological position on the legend. And because some of these decades have 2,000 people in it, it takes like a minute or two to scroll automatically through it. And I think I've memorized color patterns as they flow up or down. And I'm telling you, 9.9 times out of 10, when I let go of the mouse or the movement of it, I land within one day of where that person belongs.
It's like muscle memory.
I think so.
It probably is like a brain memory. Like brain memory. Where else is your memory?
I understood that though.
You look at it so much that like it's just stored.
Yeah.
Like it's now transitioned from the short term to the long
And it's funny because when I'm working on it and it's scrolling, I'll often take my phone and look at like any tweets that I've gotten. And meanwhile, somewhere in the back of my brain, it's going 3, 2, 1, let go. Yeah. And it's there. And oftentimes when it happens more than 6 or 7 times in a row, then I'm like, all right, I can't stop now because they need to be on the map. And putting them
that's when you know that you're like on you're like zoned in. Like there's I fully believe, and I tell my parents this all the time, like there's a reason that I'm doing this, because there's so many times that I've almost stepped away from it for one reason or another.
Yep.
You know, whether it was personal reasons or job related reasons or whatever. And every time I got to that point where I was like about to do that, something happened. Like one day, within an hour and a half, I got a call from an agency. Hey, what do you think about this? And it was like life's GPS saying, like, you missed your turn around. This is not the route that you're supposed to be taking. And I actually interviewed for a job recently and I didn't get it. And I have never interviewed for a job that I haven't been offered the position.
And the job really was perfect for her.
It was a great job.
I was the one that told her about it.
Yeah, it was. How it even came across, I have no idea, because it was an Alabama job in Washington.
I know. I'm out in Washington, I mean, for God's sake. And I found this Alabama job for her that was perfect. Anyway.
Yeah, but the stipulation on it was that, like what they called and told me before I did my second interview, you know, we've talked to general counsel in DC, and they've said you have to terminate your affiliation with this if we offer you the job. And I was like, okay. You know, like this is a need right now. So like, I'd really like to do the second interview and I'll go from there and we'll figure it out, you know. And it ended up somebody else got the position, but it was like a conflicting relief, because I was really disappointed because we've worked so hard on this. And I always tell my parents, I'm like, there's a reason. I don't know what it is yet, because like we have made progress. There have been so many doors that have been opened to us and to families that weren't necessarily, shouldn't have been as easy as what they were. And it hasn't all been easy by any means, but we are making progress, even if it's just small steps. But we have things, we know things now that probably we shouldn't know, but like families know things now that they haven't known in 20 years or 25 years. And I'm like, but we are making these steps and we are making this progress. And I was really bummed, because I thought, God, I don't want to leave the families in the same position they were in when I started doing this, you know? And but at the same time, I was like, I don't know how to feel about that. But it was also like this big, like, I don't know why you keep trying to stop doing this. Like, this is where you're supposed to be. Every time you try to veer off this side.
I tried to walk away after he was arrested in August of last year. I said, I'm done. The pressure's too much. My Twitter went from having 400 people following me to 4,000 in weeks.
Yeah,
and
isn't that weird?
The instant messages, the media requests, everybody. And I was like, I'm done. Like I told the family members, I'm done. I can't handle this. I gave up the Facebook group. Like I couldn't handle it. And then you realize that, wait a second, if I'm not out there ensuring the truth is being said about these victims and about the circumstances and defending, you know, their lives, not necessarily their lives
in your head,
their
but in your head you do kind of, don't you? Yeah.
Then who else is going to do that? No one's going to do that. And it's going to fall into this, you know, this disarray of false narratives again. And I felt an obligation to do that. And I jumped back in. I never really got that far out to begin with, but
you had like one foot out and like you couldn't get the rest out.
Well, I think now it's like, if I stop working on the map right now, you know, what would I do? Would I go back to bike riding by the beach a lot more? Yeah, I would. You know, would I, listen to more music or watch more TV? Yes, I would. Is that necessarily what I want to do? No, I can't. I get this urge to put these people on the map and give them a space where there's an opportunity, even if it's only in my own mind, that I see the value of that, but I see it. And I can't wait to get the last 3 states done. I can't wait to begin adding more missing people on it and seeing what I see. I do see the patterns. I do see connections. and just looking at the map alone, I'm like, all right, I see a pattern. Is there already like a long haul trucker that's been through here? Or, I'm not necessarily looking to find a new serial killer, but I'm looking to establish a pattern that could be this
You
person.
start noticing a lot of women with white pants and white tennis shoes. Let us know.
Yeah.
I will keep that in my mind. Yeah, I also juggle several other things. I got people asking if you see any women, 30 to 40 years old, African American, missing front tooth or a gold cap. And then I'm like, all right, is it a full gold cap? Is it just the bordering of a gold cap? Like, I have questions.
Or both.
And they're like, I don't know all the answers. Like, there's more to ask always. So,
well, ours is that's one of the things that we just started noticing is there is a period where there's ages 18 to 25-ish, about shoulder length, dark hair. Every one of them had white pants or white shoes.
Yeah, a lot of them were like nursing.
And it's like their characteristics are very, very similar, which is, we're in the South, so I mean, it happens. But when you start looking and you're like, God dang, they're quite, because we were talking about one and I was like, God, somebody else had shoes on like that,
Yeah. Like nursing shoes or something that could be mistaken for nursing shoes, So
I'm interested to know. I need to go check that map out actually and see if there's other. I try to check surrounding states sometimes, but my God, there's only so many.
I think of Florida a lot when we're doing stuff because a lot of people travel back and forth from Alabama to Florida. So, the other direction too, but it seems like I notice it more in Florida. But
yeah. Okay, since we got all the way off on that tangent, though.
I know.
So
I know.
You've mentioned it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about Dawn.
Yeah.
I first became aware of Dawn, as did others, when looking for who Fire Island Jane Doe might be related to the Long Island serial killer case. Fire Island Jane Doe, her legs were discovered on April 20th, 1996, and her skull was found in 2011. So there was a composite image of Fire Island Jane Doe. So many people before me have matched possibles, submitted possibles. I created a separate database just to correlate how many people have been submitted for Fire Island Jane Doe and how many people were excluded, because it wasn't always shown on Fire Island Jane Doe's name as page who was excluded, but they were shown on some of these missing persons things. So once I started keying into that because of the map, I'm like, whoa, I need to corral that information. So I created that the submitted comparisons database that's also open source. But in looking for Fire Island Jane Doe, I first became aware of her because in the one Facebook group, a researcher that I adore had posed the question. And I'm like, well, Dawn was last seen April 25th. Fire Island Jane Doe's legs were found 4 days before Dawn was supposedly last seen. Now, we know NamUs is always inconsistent at
because it depends on who puts it in. And,
so where they're getting that from. And if it's Suffolk County, you can almost guarantee it's going to be half-assed information at best. So we always had that out there, and Dawn was submitted. She was never excluded for Fire Island, but she was submitted, and Dawn represented. Dawn for me might have been one of the first ones that I really keyed into. Dawn's had strawberry blonde hair. She had hazel eyes that was listed at the time. In fact, she doesn't. She has brown, but she was listed as hazel. She was 5'2". 110 pounds. This became for me the rubber stamp of quintessential list characteristics for the predominant victims that that we know. So Dawn always stayed in my mind. And then about a year and a half ago, Dawn's on my map. She's got hazel eye icon on there still. I'm going to leave it there for now. And then about a year ago, because I had just been in a Twitter space, I think they called it, with a New York reporter um,
Oh,
who had,
the live things that they do on the
yeah.
Twitter. Yeah.
So uh, this reporter had on Joey Petito on there,
Mm-hmm.
a mom of a missing girl from Brooklyn, um, a son of a missing woman from Staten Island. And then I said, I reached out to my researcher. I was like, hey, I'm going to go and reach out to this reporter and see if she can draw attention to Dawn's case. And if she can't, maybe she knows somebody in Maryland in the news business that can. And that just fell off the radar. It didn't go anywhere. And that was a year and a half ago. And then 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, as I was adding someone on the map, it was right by Dawn. And I said, like, I just stopped and I looked at Dawn again, and I was looking at this blurry black and white photo, and I'm like, I wish I could do something. And then I said, wait a second, I might be able to. Look at my circle now. My circle's so much bigger with so many more incredible advocates and knowledgeable people willing to help. And I said, I reached out to my researcher and I was like, hey, do you mind if I just go and put it out there to my circle? And like, oh, please do. And I did. I made some like small approaches out there about Dawn Michelle Holt, and then I got asked to go on a call that night with the researcher, the other researcher, and they just want to remain anonymous, so I have to respect that.
Yeah.
But I want to honor them so much. But it was funny. Right before that call, I got a text from them, and then when I got on the call with just the two researchers, like, you got to live up to this now, because we had a conversation with, Dawn's sister, and she's hopeful, and there's so much. And I'm like, whoa, I wasn't ready for that. This was not what I wanted. I wanted to take this missing person and pass it on to somebody bigger, more
Yeah.
qualified, more resources. And it turned out, I got on the phone with Dawn's sister, and I was like, forget it. I'm in 100%, because this woman is broken inside. Her family is shattered, and hearing more about what they believe happened to Dawn, that's when I did have conversations, with Shayna and Tate's from Light the Way,
Who are
and
just
got
amazing.
got
I just love those guys.
They are just so special. I adore them. And that's where I got the blueprint for the letter to law enforcement. And when I'm so high strung and riddled with anxiety of like a case, or feeling responsible, like I did with Dawn, I come up with action plans. Like, I just paper and pen turns instantly into my cell phone, where I can just type things real fast. And within 15 minutes, I came up with a big page of an agenda, an action plan that was realistic. They were reachable goals. They were easily actionable goals. And they would be things that, as incrementally we reach those goals, it would be more and more empowering for all of us collectively. It adapted, the outreach to law enforcement. I spent weeks researching proper ways to write an effective FOIA request. And, I took probably from 5 different outlets and crafted one uniquely for Dawn's case. And, I put it out to the researchers. I'm like, what do you guys think about this? And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, it's terrible, right? I'm never going to do this again. And like, it's brilliant. I was like, I don't know about that. I'm not that smart, but it covered all of the bases. And for me, that became, actionable advocacy, and the ability to increase movement for it. And hearing Dawn's story of, a 20-year-old beautiful girl with 2 kids at 20, married, good looking man, but she got caught up with drugs, and can't fault anybody for that. It's an epidemic, in our society for decades. And being around dangerous people, Dawn found herself in big trouble. She was arrested in 1995.
Oh, wow.
She was presented with, two options: significant jail time, or you flip and you become a confidential informant. She decided to take the latter and, offset whatever jail time might come or whatever. But word got out about that, and Dawn, when she was walking with a friend of hers, they were shot at, and that terrified Dawn. And she listened to her sister. Excuse me. She listened to her sister, and she went to Florida, and she was there for a period of time. But Dawn was lured back to Maryland, and when she was in Maryland, she reached out to her husband and said, "I'd like to see the kids," and he was willing to make that happen. But by the time he got to the hotel, Dawn was gone, and that was on April 25th, 1996. That's where the official story about Dawn stops, and everything else that Dawn's amazing sister researched and gathered, and collected and then shared, stops also, because nobody's done anything about it. And there are some sites that say Dawn may be a victim of foul play. There's one site that says Dawn's a homicide victim. Certainly foul play. There isn't any official evidence of homicide. I think a lot of the information that has been researched initially by Dawn's sister, currently by us researchers, that there's enough to indicate that she was murdered.
Yeah.
And a location of where she might be. And that's big information. It's out there, so I don't have a problem sharing it. I have permission to speak about Dawn from her family. But I always temper that with the part of the plan is to not go and say where these locations are or who these
because you don't want to risk
who these
it.
people might be. But the plan is, and I say it so often publicly, I said it last night, I'll say it now, is to have that relationship with law enforcement so that we can revisit the collective information and partner with them to do just simple things that are within their purview that they can do, to see if we can move the needle. And once we get little affirmations like that, then we could probably bring Dawn home.
So do you think that Witzik is a possibility or no? And protection, witness protection.
That was something I thought of.
Because she decided, she said, okay, well, I'll be an informant.
Yeah, I don't believe so. And I don't think there's any, there's no indication of that. There's commentary that's out there, to some degree, of a witness, and that's what needs to be really explored thoroughly and carefully. And
we talk about the drug aspect of things all the time.
It's a big topic for us because we have, I suppose there is everywhere, but it feels like that is like a good majority of our cases involve that in some way.
And those are the cases that don't really get a lot of attention because there's a stigma attached to
always
kind of substance.
and that's what bothers me the most, even with the Liz victims, because some of them were survival work. Well, they were survival workers that they're marginalized, and it, regardless, that still a human
it doesn't
being.
matter. They're still that's still a person, and even I don't care if you don't agree with what their decisions were, or their lifestyle, or whatever. They have a lot of people have family. They've got mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, children. The children are the ones that give me. The children had nothing to do with the life that their parents lived. And whether you agree with whatever their lifestyle was, the children deserve answers. Their kids deserve answers because it is a traumatizing. And they have lots of questions that they have to deal with growing up without a parent. You know, that's a real thing when you don't have a parent in your life and in your formative years. I mean, and even after, once you're into an adulthood, that's still a thing. And so, you know, it bothers me when there are children that are left behind that don't have these answers. And so, because it doesn't make it any better, even if they did have answers. But to me, at least having some kind of resolution there allows them some sense of, you know, understanding.
And very much,
and maybe some things there's not understanding. You can't understand really.
And it's very much present in all of that is very much present in Dawn's case. You know, her family has, you know, varying feelings and emotions on this. Her mom and her sister, they just want to bring her home. They don't, they're willing to accept what they believe happened. We want to do that in tandem with law enforcement. Also in different layers of acceptance. And there's anger still that's present. You had two kids that were 3 and 2 when their mom vanished that basically did not grow up with a mom. And
I don't think you can properly go through the stages of grief whenever you don't have any kind of, you know, firm answers.
And that's why
you kind of get stuck in limbo.
Yeah, and that's why in our conversations, you know, behind the scenes, it's like I have links for local to their locations of, you know, victim resources where they can, you know, if they are willing to have a conversation with someone qualified with this level of a situation, qualified to help them navigate their emotions, to identify what those emotions are, to accept them, and then to maybe evolve them into something where you're never going to get closure, even if she comes home, even if, you know, someone's convicted of her murder, you still don't have her. So closures, you know, a veil of a solution, but, you know, there is a path forward to living your life in this place.
Yeah.
I've
heard that a lot, is that, you know, it's, again, like you said, no closure, but their lives get put on hold. And at least from there, once there's somewhat of an answer, then they can move forward and actually start living that life again.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean,
because you just kind of get put on pause. It's almost like pause. Your life just, your life kind of freezes at that moment. And you can kind of move forward in some kind of sense, but not really truly, because you're still
there,
are sitting there, because there's that part that's still just stuck, you know.
At least, and some people more than others as well too. You know, some people just simply cannot move forward. I mean, they are stuck.
At least with answers, there's the opportunity that you can, you know, that closure is not there. That hole will always be there. You can't close that hole. There was a whole person there, and now there's not. But it does allow you to at least start maybe letting go of some of the grief that's been there and actually move.
And that's what that to me is just as every part of advocacy as map work, or, you know, writing a FOIA request or anything like that, or even speaking on behalf of somebody. It's and I say this because we have a couple of private group chats that, you know, I approached this because I cared about missing person Dawn Michelle Holt. That is now expanded to care about Dawn's sister, Dawn's daughter. There are people in the chat that we brought in because they wanted them in the chat, and I accept that, and their family now. And I'm certainly I've become very close to Dawn's sister, clearly, because I talk to her whenever she calls me. I pick up the phone. I feel for her, and I love her, but I think, when we created the chat group and we were having these discussions, Dawn's sister was telling their mom, look, this is happening and this is what these people are planning to do, and the mom was like, whatever, like, not wanting to, I guess, embrace it all or give herself even a little bit of hope. And it's not for
Mm-hmm.
me to say, hey, I am, from nowhere offering hope, because
Mm-hmm.
that's not a tangible thing. And honestly, hope isn't always
Mm-hmm.
a strategy, but sometimes it's all you have. And over the last 2.5 weeks, as the chat thread it's probably miles long by now, but um, today something special happened, and Dawn's mom shared the poster that we created.
Yeah.
And I was, I
Well, it's
woke
the
up.
anniversary today.
Yeah, today's the anniversary. So I woke up and I was like, all right, what's this day gonna bring? And then I read that, and I got tears in my eyes, and I'm like, these are the little things, you the ability to offer even a modicum of hope is a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing. But when someone takes
Mm-hmm.
that hope and nurtures it for themselves, that's an even grander feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm cautious, because I tell them, this is what I'm hoping to
Mm-hmm.
achieve. We may not get there.
That's the thing, is you can't make
Right.
promises because you don't know. There's
I
no
say it
certainty.
all the time.
I can't assure you that we're going to get
Yeah.
anything. And we say the same thing. We're like, we can try really
Yeah.
hard to
Just
get
want to keep these
records. We can try to get
expectations
answers.
realistic, because
We will tell you
Yeah.
straight out the gate, more times than not, we don't
right.
get answers from agencies when we contact them. We have news. We have a case, from Birmingham, that we tried to get multiple media outlets to pick up. It was from 1998, Hewlin Hardwick, and he was shot in his car. There was a witness in the car, and there was a guy arrested.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that just got
Wow.
dropped. And nobody knows why. We can't get a copy of the motion to dismiss. That, ironically, is not in the public record on Alicourt. Nobody will answer. His family can't get answers. None of the media outlets will touch it. And it's like, we will reach out to everybody that we've made contacts with, because we've connected with a lot of people, especially like different reporters and things. But we can't promise that anything is actually going to happen with it, because, there's only so many things that we can do to try to get it. We can just keep sharing it and hope that eventually we can cross somebody that'll pick it up. But, what we can say is that we'll keep trying.
Absolutely. I mean, I say it all the time.
You're not going to be. You don't have to. Yeah, and sometimes that is the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is that, okay, well, I don't have to do this by myself anymore. And I think for some families, whenever they've hit these roadblocks time and time again, and when it's been so long and there have been no answers, it's really hard to keep that kind of flame going. It starts to die down, and it's like, well, it just gets harder and harder. So then you lose it. And once you lose it, it's that letdown. How do you let yourself start to believe that there's the possibility that there's going to be some resolution, just to be let down again?
Yeah, and that's what I say.
Because I imagine that is probably a quote almost as devastating as going through it all, because you're reliving it every single time.
Part of what I was talking with her sister before I got on here was, she embraces the successes we've had. You gotta reply on your FOIA request. Well, they're obligated to give me a reply, they have to. So it's not necessarily the answer that I want, and it's not the case file yet, but it's an acknowledgement, and having an acknowledgement means I have a point of contact. And once you have a point of contact, then you can build a relationship. But
then you can start being the squeaky wheel.
These are, we can look at them as successes, but we're not. The finish line is nowhere near in sight, and With law enforcement, the road is paved. Without them, it's like climbing mountains. So we have to be careful.
Yes.
She wanted to, I'm getting in the car, I'm driving up, and, we're going to do this. I'm like, don't go in the car. Stay home. We're not there yet.
I'll let you know when you
Yeah,
need to get in the car.
and we'll get there, but it has to be careful. We have to manage our expectations. We can't allow the successes to make it bigger than what it is just yet.
Well, there's not a handbook for families dealing with this, so a lot of times they don't know the process. They don't even know they can request records a lot of times, and even if they do know, they don't really know how to go about. All they know is they've asked about it. And they've either been told no or they just didn't get a response. And so they don't really know the formal process of going around. So when you have somebody that comes in that does know and kind of walks through it, and then you start getting things, that is a big deal because, well, here's something that I didn't have and didn't know how to get. And that's already more than what I had. So it is, I say take the win. Because it's already more than what they had.
And that's where they're at. They're like 28 years. This is what's happened in 2.5 weeks.
I mean, you don't want to stop there because that's not, it's not enough, and it's never that until
and that's what I do when
when
I find myself getting excited, I open up that action plan and I'm like, unless you're ready to check off those remaining boxes, you're not there yet. So just
get excited though. Don't let yourself not get excited. Because
if I get excited, I also get terrified. Because and this is what I said to Sherry tonight is like, I do not want to fail you. Our group, we don't want to fail you because what happens after this? There's nothing after this.
I can tell you just what you've done so far. You haven't failed. I mean, this is a big win for them already. Whether you actually come through and you're able to find her or not, this is more than what they had, and they have. I mean, yes, you don't want to give false hope, but they have hope, and that's something they haven't had in a while. So that's a huge win. So you're not failing them at all.
Yeah. I know.
And I know it's hard to because we go through this a lot too. Where it's like, oh my gosh, because we'll go through, it's like there's windows and you don't get anything. It's like there's nothing good that's coming out. It's like every time you turn around, rejection, denied, denied. No, we're not talking to you. We can't answer that. And it's like, come on. But then every now and then you get on a winning streak where you're getting everything. And so it's like, take the small. So on those days or those weeks or those months where it's like rejection after rejection, look for those small. You take those small for your responses.
I mean, I'm
and you're like, whatever. We got one.
I mean, I'm pleased with the responses within the FOIA request. I'm expecting an outright denial, but I've already written 3.5 versions of an appeal. So
I was like, there's an appeal process.
I know.
Do it.
So
I'm
ready for all of it because one, it's just for me. I feel confident knowing that there's a plan and steps to take. But having that,
I think it's great that you already have your appeal written, so that when you get it, you can just send it right away.
But I can also convey that to the family as well, and that is just as important as having being ready with the next step in the plan, because when you run out of anything, that's when it gets hard. That's when it gets sad. And
when you are stuck and you don't know where to go.
So right now there's a lot of potential, and I have a lot of encouragement and enthusiasm about it. And we are solid with the family, which is probably the most important thing, other than bringing Dawn home. And let's just see what happens within this week, building the rest of this relationship with law enforcement, and literally this could just be done in the shortest amount of time. If everything aligns properly, we could have resolution in this within months.
Yeah.
But that's
but that's everything, running
and
like
it's
it
never
should
gonna
run,
be like that. But
that's best case scenario, but then it never, we just talked about life apparently lately, especially. It's like, let me tell you about your
indeed.
plans. Those aren't going to work. I totally got us completely off subject when I went to ask. So, is the husband related to any of the stuff that's going on? Like, did he know she was going to Florida? Is he like, how is he linked to
officially
this
he
in
was
any
always
way?
labeled as estranged, so anybody with a mouse and a keyboard is going to say, well, look at him, he's estranged, there's a reason why.
That's the reason I
And
asked that question.
it wasn't the case. He was never really a suspect. He is as traumatized today by Dawn's disappearance as he was back then, and he's been consistent with that. And once the missing persons poster has been circulating, the comments have been coming, and I I consider myself advocating for Dawn, for her sister, for her daughter, for her family. And when the comments came at her husband, I was right there to defend them immediately as they came through. Like, there wasn't even like a 2 hour delay. There was not even a 2 minute delay. Like, I was on every single one of them in dozens of chats and pages saying he is not a suspect. He's traumatized. And,
well, he had their kids. He had the kids and he was bringing them to meet her. So do they know about how long it was from the time that she got back? Like, she goes to Florida and then she comes back. Do they know how long it was since she got back to when she made the phone call?
It was just days.
Who was she staying with? Anybody?
Yes.
For their knowledge? Yes.
The person that she was initially shot at with, that's who she was staying with.
That person doesn't know who shot at
that
them?
person's deceased now.
Oh, wow.
No close.
So a lot of those avenues are not viable. But
did that person, I said she or
he
that was with her, also in the drug area, similar to what same crowd Dawn was in? Also an informant?
No, but there was a $10,000 bounty on her head. So there was a contract out on Dawn's
Dawn?
head.
What about the guy that was with her?
Just Dawn.
Okay.
Now the question is
well, then that means that tells me they knew she was an informant.
Yep. Well, that's why she was shot.
How did you find out about
that? Was out all over the street.
When did the guy in the hotel? When was he murdered?
No,
that's what I'm trying to get at.
He died. I don't off the top of my head know the answer to that. But after the 25th of April, 1996, that was it. No one was talking about Dawn. There wasn't much of an investigation. It was ignored because she was marginalized, in that world of drugs. And
well, what happened to this hotel? What happened to the guy that was walking with her and she got shot at and then was at the hotel with her? Did they ever
questioned him?
Where did he go?
Doesn't know anything. Nobody knows anything. That's the standard line. But he wasn't part of the theory of what happened to her. It had to do with other people that were allegedly collecting on this bounty.
Okay.
And, in that world, you take a hit out on somebody, you collect the reward, your status goes up, and you have a bigger job and role in, whatever organization.
It's all about the rep.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's
so there is at least, well, there's at least one person who knows what happened because they did it.
Mm.
There were several,
Presumably.
there were several people that knew. Most of those several people are now deceased. In fact, just about all of them are.
There's at least one living witness.
There's at least one.
Yeah.
I just want to be a little vague to not jump the shark on anything or
No.
But
but probably more, honestly. I mean, you're at a hotel.
Talk.
You're in.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
But if
and there's they have closed circuit TV. There's is it a populated area? Are there gas stations?
Now it's a La Quinta hotel. Back then it was an Econo Lodge. It was listed as a Howard Johnson, but it wasn't a Howard Johnson. It was an Econo Lodge. And no, as far as the cameras, if I recall right.
I was going to say, even if there was and they weren't paying attention, they probably didn't look anyway. Yeah.
And the other thing is that she was an adult. Two, she was, in that world of drugs. Because of the drugs and the people that she was, embroiled with, there were plenty of times where Dawn wasn't seen for days, weeks, or even longer. So that's the other thing where people go, they waited 8 weeks to report her missing. Well, Dawn had, there was a history of that, and that's because of the life that she was wrapped up in.
So it wasn't in 1996, it's not like people had cell phones that they were carrying around on them like today, where you could just check in on them. And I mean, even Ross Chapman went without contact for a while, so they were delayed in reporting him missing. And so because they thought he'll be back, and then he didn't come back for Christmas or New Year's, and they were like, okay, well, something's not right here. And there are plenty of families where it's months. Brianna Reyes, she had a history of substance use, and it was a year almost whenever her family reported her missing, because it wasn't uncommon for her to go an extended period of time.
That was one that came to mind to me too. Basically, she didn't show up for the holidays, and that's what was their alert. Yeah.
And that's what law enforcement often uses to not deal with the case, because, well, she's an adult. She can do what she wants. And right now she's not coming home, and we're not investing the time, the resources, or even the care to bother. And that was back then. I'm going to say it now. That was back then. I'm hoping it's not the case now. And there's a commitment, and I want to explore that commitment.
Yeah, we want to hope.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at also like just when you mentioned the cell phone. Yeah, no, there wasn't really cell phones in '96. I think I had
they had
like
bag
now
phones.
A burner phone. Now.
Or they had like the cordless, like it looked literally like you were carrying around a big old cordless phone.
I mean, you look at her Namus page; it's the same two pictures since that page was inception in 2009. So for 28 years, it was only that black and white and that really, really grainy color photo. And that's the first thing that I asked for once I had a little bit of trust with the family, is like, get me a better picture. And they were like, the color one is from her wedding. Well, here's this one. And then they sent me the picture of Dawn in the red with this just incredibly vibrant smile. And
I know, it's a beautiful picture of her.
And I'm like, this is what the world needs to see of Dawn Michelle Holt. Because before I saw that picture, I think of Dawn Michelle Holt. I see the black and white picture.
Yeah.
Now I see this smile. And, I have so many more pictures that they shared with me, but we'll release them slowly. But this is what we need to do so that people that have an interest in stuff like this are endeared to her. They see her as a person, and as a young woman.
I'm looking at the Namus entry now, and the two pictures compared to each other, they're so different, and I think it's important too in those cases where you have those two separate pictures, even even if one's maybe not the greatest quality, because there is a very stark difference. And especially when you do have somebody who has gotten off onto a path with substance use, because a lot of times they lose a lot of weight. And so their facial features and body shape and all that begins to change. So people who knew them, before might not always recognize them. And so I think it's always good because, it does help to have that different.
I'm looking at the reel that her family posted.
It also, you need a good, clear picture because it's not the black and white. The black and white photo it's like not super, super clear, and so you don't see a lot of her facial features or anything. So
I was looking, there's the second picture of her in the red dress that has the glasses on. And that's like, it makes you like feel like she's like just an everyday person, like, not this person out there that's in the drug world or not this person out there that's this missing person. She's just a person. She's just a beautiful woman. And the one with the feathered hair gets me all the time. I remember that hair. I had that hair.
I love that picture. I love that. I talk about it all the time. I clearly never did. I think I always wanted it on the side because I used to have my hair parted in the middle, but I couldn't get that feathering no matter what I did, no matter how many cans of hairspray or whatever. I couldn't get it. I just gave up. But I mean, it's exactly that. And this is what I talked about last night about Dawn. Everything about Dawn, all the images that I've put out there already that I've seen, she could be like a cousin of mine. It felt so familiar. I know I spent a moment or two on the one picture with the holiday tablecloth. And I tell you, my mother, we had that tablecloth. It was white with the little pine leaves on it. And it had the little white sort of material underneath, like a felt material.
That's crazy
it. And we all had that, and then there's the camera with the flashbulb lights, that have been blown, and
like you felt like it was going to break when you did it.
The clamping in as it clicked in, the light bulb. Like,
my mom had one of those.
Yeah, there's just so much familiarity to that, and then I go back and I look at her face, and I'm like, we need to do something to get you home. Like we need to figure this out because I mean, that's Dawn Michelle Holt from Maryland, but that could be my cousin. That could be my sister. That could be my friend or my neighbor. And it's that.
It very easily could have been a niece of mine. So,
And this is part of the, how I just wanted to pass this on to people, more qualified than me, but then, let me build up my qualifications then, because even if this goes to someone else to do, I want to watch and learn, be a part of it. I don't want accolades or anything like that. I want to learn the process. And there is never going to be a full definitive process because it's different for every single one, but you learn different things. And, that's another database I'm working on different pathways like that. But, it's bringing me a blessing. I barely finished Nevada on the map because Dawn was taking up so much of my bandwidth in my brain. That just the other day, I was like, I have 120 people left in Nevada. I have to finish it. And I put my do not disturb on. I felt terrible about it. And then I really took it off 10 minutes later. But I didn't feel that brave. But I finished it. And now I knew that I can focus on everything else. And that's what meant so much to me, is to get that accomplishment for Dawn and for her family and just have a path forward.
Yeah.
What, give us a general description of Dawn, like age, physical traits, height, things like that, for anybody who may have seen her, maybe they don't realize it.
Yeah. So she was taller. So I think Namus still has her at like 5'2", 5'4", but she's actually 5'6", 5'7". She was an inch shy of her husband, and we have the wedding pictures, so you can tell. Um, we know how tall he is, and just an inch or two shy. So she's 5'6", 5'7". She had beautiful color eyes. They weren't hazel; they just looked that way, but they're not. They're brownish, light brown eyes. Clearly, the hair is spectacular. It was on trend. It was it was classic, and it was always going to be on trend. And she did have a pierced navel, and she had a little scar above her left eye, I believe it was. And she was fierce. She was a fierce woman, and for me, she was denied that ability to expand her fierceness, to you know do things that could have taken her out of the scene that she was in and made her a more present mom for her kids and her family. But
I feel like in 1996, maybe it's because um, maybe I just wasn't aware of it as much then. I graduated high school in 04, so I wasn't even in high school yet at that point. But I got my belly button pierced when I was in high school. I think I turned 18. My parents would not let me. So as soon as I turned 18, I went and got it done. But that seems like something that was like kind of not the typical thing in like 1996.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I know there were tattoos and things. I know people have always had tattoos and things, but like she had her belly button pierced and she had her tattoos and like,
well, she had a
cool, like
she just in her presence
on a different kind of level,
I mean, you look at and you see it often, like
maybe a different time period. Like she was ahead of her
like
time.
Even with Beth Ellen Vincent, the same thing, fashion forward in her own style. And you either follow along with it or you watch it walk on by, because they're emblematic of their own self, and they're unique in their own space, and they're comfortable in that. And from what I'm told, Dawn had an incredible sense of humor. She had an amazing laugh, and she was so quick-witted. And in some of those pictures that I have where she's mouthing a word of some sort, it's like, I can't imagine what she's saying. I can come up with a whole bunch of scenarios, but it like you can see the fierceness. And certainly somebody like me that's very empathetic, that just can embrace a moment and exist in it from just looking at someone else. How can you not be compelled to all of that? For me, there's so much familiarity. It's part of the reason I got on the Long Island serial killer: proximity, familiarity to the locations, and awareness and understanding of the victims. And Dawn 100%. Is just like that to me. In fact, I'm probably more surprised of my own commitment to it, knowing how I am as it is, that Dawn is with me all the time now. And it's more than just Dawn. It's her sister, and it's her family. So,
and you connect with the families, and because when you start digging in, and you get to know them on a different kind of level. It's more that it turns into more than just a story. It's more than a newspaper article that you read, because now it's so personal.
I was going to share this last night, and I'm glad I put my phone down, because I it's not that I didn't want to, but I was running out of time, and I didn't want to make it about me. But I mean, I have issues with people in my family, and as mature as I think I am, as elevated with awareness as I try to be, and as sensitive I am with my advocacy, I still have some terrible relationships within my family. And one of those relationships, not that it was terrible, but was an issue that I had lingering with my mom. And, I hear a million people who lost their moms. It's like, love them while you have them, all of that. I get that. But as I became more and more committed to Dawn, to be a true advocate for Dawn, I felt like I needed to make amends. Otherwise, I'd be, a hypocrite. So the day before, I called my mom, and we talked it out. We cried it out. She watched the show. I mean, she watched it this morning. She started watching it last night, but turned it off. Um, and I felt more of a truer person, more of a truer advocate, because I'm just more genuine now. Like, I can't sit there and I believe in saying I love you to anybody. I say it often.
Yeah.
I try to say it as often as possible. Now with Sherry, it's just like, I love you. I love you too. It's like you're my sister now. Like, you're family. You're right. You become family, and I want them to know that I love them in case anything happens to me or anything happens to them. I want that to be one of the last things somebody hears
Yeah.
and knows, and if possible, feels. And, there's so many of families that I've gotten to know that, I mean, a month ago, I may not have picked up the call if the phone if my mother called me. But if Stacy Reddish's sister called me, I'm walking away from. I don't care who's in front of me. I'm going to pick up that phone and talk to her sister. Same thing with Sherry now, and the other families that I work with or have relationships with. That importance and that respect that's given to them, that they now give to me, it's like having a winning lottery ticket. Like, it's everything, and it means more to me than just about anything. I can't equate it because, I didn't always have the greatest life growing up. There was a lot of trauma in my life, and a lot of loss, and hurt and pain, and I can use that to resonate with people's stories, but I move past my own because I'm more focused on theirs. And I think the greatest gift that I've gotten out of learning about Dawn and getting to know her sister and her daughter is that I felt I needed to be a more authentic person, a more authentic son to my mother, a more authentic advocate, in order to continue doing this. Otherwise, I'd feel pangs of hypocrisy, which I was feeling prior to that. And I wanted to share that last night, but I knew it would take too long to articulate it, and I didn't have the time, and honestly, I didn't have the energy for it, because it
It's
it's
been a
been
long
a
day
long
yesterday.
it's been a long week and a
Yeah.
half. Even
It's been
preparing for Dawn was exhausting, to get it right, and
yeah.
to do it properly.
It's um Mary's coming back. Her thing said she had stopped recording, so I was like, "Hey, I think you gotta
Oh, okay.
restart your thing." Um, well, it's we have George James's mom, Tillis, has like just quickly become one of the same thing. She calls me all the time. Um, and actually, I've got a voicemail from her that I need to call and check. She also knows sometimes, like, she knows there are things that are going on. So, but she does the same thing before she gets off any phone call. She says, "I love you. I'm thinking about you, and I'll check in with you later," every single time. And I mean, it's just like I don't know. I can't imagine life now without
Right.
Tillis in it, or so many of these families that we talk to on almost a daily
Yeah.
basis at this point. Like, some of those families we talk to, more than I've talked to some of them more than my mom and dad. It just
Same.
depending on what's going
Yeah.
on in the week, and it's for me, it wasn't necessarily about control, but I didn't have a lot of control over other things that were going on in my life. And this was kind of one area or aspect where there was this freedom to kind of, I was enough just being me. It was just enough. And it was rewarding and humbling, I think. Even though you're like, I felt like I was doing not really a whole lot, but to them it was so much. And it is, I think, probably been one of the most profound experiences, actually.
It is.
Because it is just, yeah, I don't know, it will restore your faith in humanity to see the support that comes out, I think. When you start these groups or these pages, like Dawn has a Facebook page, right? What's the name? Give us the full name of that one.
Justice for Dawn Michelle Holt.
And you can go follow that, like that, and you guys update it
constantly.
So all that support helps bring more awareness. It brings more eyes to it. The more people that go like it and subscribe it throws it in that algorithm. And it just is an amazing thing to see people come from literally all over the world to these pages and just say, hey, we're thinking about you. Share it over here, flip in Australia or wherever, and it will completely alter your view.
But when I get these random texts that say, just saying I love you, thank you for everything, we'll talk soon, I'll never forget about you, what you've given me or my family, or things like that, those are so incredibly profound and moving that I mean, I'm a sissy, so I go and sit down and I cry it out, and I get all emotional about it, and then I immediately stop doing all of that. I acknowledge it, but I move on from it because it can't be about me. I'll look back and go, yeah, I kind of helped do that, but
it's a good motivator though. It's like it's a driving force to know, like, okay, this is making a difference.
Yeah.
Like, it's not for nothing. I may feel like it's insignificant. It's not for nothing. It is making a difference. And it doesn't matter if it's only making a difference to one person or 10 people. It's making a difference to somebody. And so that's worth it.
I think and I won't go into any specifics on it, but there's a case that's close to where I live where same situation, multiple decades, no missing persons report. I kind of get involved, or I get in touch with the family member who was generous or trusting enough to give me 15 minutes of her time, which turned into a 4.5 hour conversation for the first time, ending with I love yous, like I'll meet you at the church, I'll do that, whatever. And then, you share some of the information where this map was so important that, they just want answers. They're after so many decades, they just want an answer. They're willing to accept a fate, but they need an answer, and they need something to go on, and that map provided that. And I'm like, take this to that investigator, because if she hasn't been running the system, they ought to compare her to this. And I'm not going to submit her. I'm going to allow you to do it and let the detective do it, so that they also feel like they are moving the needle on behalf of that. And because we got information through our conversation, that case also is active to this very moment. And I'm like 110% positive of the missing person and the unidentified being a match, but they were only a mile away from each other where the missing person was last seen, where this unidentified Jane Doe was found a year later, a mile apart for all that time. And there's movement now. So and there's significant movement, because no one can get a word out of law enforcement. So I'm saying that that's a positive right now, because there was enough information to be shared, that's tangible, and now let the experts do their job. And that's where we're at. And I'm waiting for that day to be announced and somehow at least acknowledged who she is. So for me, this doe that I cared about for years gets her name back, and this missing person that I care about since I've learned about her goes home officially. And those are those depths of personal reward that are special, like beyond special. Like they're, you guys know that that's such a wonderful feeling.
It changes, like, I don't know, it just changes your whole perspective, I think, on our outlook and in general purpose. It just,
and you want to build on that. You want to build on, being a more effective advocate. You want to build on, being a better, longer lasting friend to these people.
It's a vested interest to see an improvement in how these are handled, because if somebody doesn't step up to make this change or push for this change to have these handled better, then who's going to do it? Like, it hasn't changed yet, so somebody's got to do it, and why not me? Because nobody else is doing it. And if I have, like, in my mind, if I do nothing but leave the world a better place, or at least Alabama a better place for my kid, then I've done all right in my life. And what I don't want to leave my kid is what we currently have.
It's the easiest part of advocacy is just to share something. It's the easiest part. I think at our level, when we do so many, like, you can spend a half hour retweeting and reposting and, even making a comment on something, but it's all worth it.
If somebody has information about Dawn's case, who do they need to contact?
The Maryland State Police. So it's 410-290-0050. That's the Maryland State Police phone number.
We will wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us and talking to us about everything. And all your hard work, man. You are really, you're kicking butt. We appreciate you and all that you're doing.
I am... Yeah. That's what's astonishing to me, because I'm more inspired by, like, you guys and Light the Way and all these incredible advocates, and to even be considered, in that same space is I don't have the words for it. It's very humbling, and it only makes me want to work harder.
I think you're doing great things, amazing things, actually. That map is phenomenal, and I think that Dawn's family is super lucky to have been connected up with you. So let us know, though, if you need anything.
I absolutely will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Since Alabama Cold Case Advocacy's creation, we have dedicated innumerable hours to researching and networking in an effort to provide the largest platform we can to the cases we share. We shoulder all associated expenses with Alabama Cold Case Advocacy out of our own pocket, including the subscription fees for researching and production of the Unforgotten podcast to provide a cost-free avenue for the victims' families of those cases.
We hope you will join in our efforts to raise awareness of Alabama's missing and murdered and support these families who have been forced to carry the immeasurable loss of their loved ones and the fight for answers. If you appreciate our mission and you are inspired to make a donation, your extra support will enable the ACCA to continue our research, share the cold cases, and help those families know that they are also unforgotten.
Unforgotten is an Alabama cold case advocacy podcast recorded in conjunction with Riverside FM, hosted and distributed by Spotify for podcasters, available on your favorite podcast platform. Intro music for the show was created by Principles of Uncertainty, who also mixed and mastered this episode. Content and production is by Sellers Stormy. Artwork by Sellers. Credits for music, sound clips, special mentions, and any source referenced in our podcast can be found in each episode's description. We hope you will join us on all the major social media sites and continue to raise awareness of our Alabama cold cases. Until next time, thank you for listening, and remember, justice may be delayed, but the victims and their families remain unforgotten.